Welcome to Trading Rebels. If this is your first time here, you're not late, you're right on time. This is a space for traders who are tired of being lied to, tired of being sold shortcuts, tired of feeling like something is wrong with them simply because the fantasy didn't work. And if you've been here before, then you already know why this conversation matters. What we do here is simple but uncomfortable. We tell the truth, even when it dismantles what the industry has been feeding you. Now let me start with a question that cuts closer than most people are willing to admit. How long did you believe you were just one trade away from changing your life? One setup, one signal, one special strategy, one lucky breakout that would flip everything overnight. That belief didn't come from nowhere. It was planted, carefully, repeatedly, professionally. The lie of the overnight trader is not an accident. It is a business model. Scroll through social media for 5 minutes and you'll see it dressed in different costumes. A screenshot of profit with no context. A before and after story compressed into a single week. Someone telling you they finally cracked the code, as if the market is a puzzle waiting for the clever. The message is subtle but consistent. Speed equals intelligence and time equals incompetence. If it's taking you long, you must be doing something wrong. That idea is poison. Not because wealth is impossible, but because overnight success rewires your expectations before you've even built capacity. You begin trading with a distorted sense of time. You don't measure progress in skill or alignment. You measure it in how fast results show up. And the moment results slow down, doubt creeps in. Not healthy doubt, but corrosive doubt. The kind that whispers, others are doing this faster than you. Others figured it out quicker. Maybe you're not built for this. Here's the truth most people never say out loud. Overnight success stories in trading are either incomplete, exaggerated, or survivorship bias wrapped in good lighting. What you're not shown is the silent accumulation of losses before the screenshot. You're not shown the years of trial that were reframed as months of genius. You're not shown the capital that absorbed mistakes without consequence. And you're definitely not shown the emotional cost paid quietly before the narrative became marketable. The overnight trader myth survives because it appeals to something deeply human. We want relief. We want escape velocity. We want the pressure to end quickly. Many traders don't even want wealth. They want the anxiety to stop. They want the feeling of being behind in life to disappear. So when someone promises speed, it feels like oxygen. And when you're desperate for air, you stop asking whether what you're breathing is clean. This is where the lie does its deepest damage. It shifts your relationship with effort. You start seeing patience as weakness, process as delay, structure as something you tolerate only until results arrive. You don't want to build, you want to arrive. And trading punishes that mindset mercilessly because the market does not reward urgency. It rewards alignment. It doesn't care how badly you want out of your current situation. It responds only to what you consistently execute. Let's be honest for a moment. If overnight success were normal, the market would collapse under the weight of everyone winning quickly. Edge would evaporate. Probability would flatten. The very existence of sustained opportunity implies time, selection, filtering, and survival. Yet the industry keeps selling speed because speed sells hope faster than truth. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Many traders secretly know this is a lie, yet they still cling to it. Why? Because letting go of the overnight fantasy feels like admitting adulthood. It means accepting that this path will demand something deeper than excitement. It means accepting boredom, repetition, delayed gratification, and responsibility. It means accepting that no one is coming to rescue you with a miracle setup. The moment you abandon the overnight trader myth, something strange happens. You feel both heavier and freer. Heavier because you can no longer outsource success to luck or timing. Freer because you stop racing ghosts. You stop comparing your chapter 2 to someone else's edited chapter 10. You stop panicking when progress looks slow, because slow is no longer interpreted as failure. This is where real traders are born. Not when profits explode, but when expectations stabilize. When you stop asking, how fast can this make me rich? And start asking, what kind of trader must I become for consistency to even be possible? That question changes everything. It shifts the center of gravity from outcome to design, from fantasy to framework, from hope to intention. The lie of the overnight trader doesn't just delay success. It actively trains you to sabotage it. It conditions you to abandon systems too early, to overtrade, to chase volatility, to disrespect risk. It teaches you to confuse movement with progress. And worst of all, it teaches you to mistrust time, when time is the very medium through which mastery emerges. If this is hitting close to home, that's a good sign. It means you're not asleep anymore. It means some part of you already knows that the rush has cost you more than it's given you. And that awareness is the first crack in the illusion. This channel exists for that moment. For traders who are done being rushed, done being dazzled, done being lied to. Trading Rebels is not here to promise speed. It's here to restore sanity, to reframe success as something built, not stumbled upon. To remind you that the market is not a slot machine and you are not late to a race that never existed. The overnight trader is a myth, a profitable one for those selling it, and a destructive one for those chasing it. The sooner you see it clearly, the sooner you can step off the treadmill of urgency and onto a path that actually holds weight. Let's go deeper, because even after the overnight wealth illusion cracks, something else keeps traders stuck. Something quieter. Something chemical. Dopamine. Not the buzzword version people throw around, but the real mechanism quietly hijacking decision-making in the background. Trading doesn't just test your strategy, it tests your biology. And most traders don't lose because they're stupid or reckless. They lose because they're being neurologically farmed. Every flashing candle, every notification, every sudden spike is a stimulus. The brain doesn't ask whether that stimulus is profitable, it asks whether it's exciting. Dopamine doesn't reward patience, it rewards anticipation. It fires not when you win, but when you think you might win. That's why watching price move feels better than closing a good trade. That's why waiting feels painful. That's why boredom feels like danger. The market becomes a slot machine dressed as a profession. Click, watch, hope, click again. And each interaction reinforces a loop. You're no longer trading setups, you're trading sensations. The old system never warns you about this. In fact, it benefits from it. The more stimulated you are, the more active you become. The more active you become, the more mistakes you make. And the more mistakes you make, the more content, tools, indicators, and fixes you're sold. Here's what most traders don't realize until it's too late. Dopamine addiction doesn't look like chaos at first. It looks like passion. It looks like obsession. It looks like I just really love the markets. But underneath that enthusiasm is a subtle erosion of judgment. You start needing movement to feel engaged. You start feeling uneasy when nothing is happening. You confuse calm with stagnation. And that's when overtrading begins to feel justified. Think about it honestly. How many trades did you take, not because your system demanded it, but because you were tired of waiting? How many times did you open a chart with no plan just to see what's happening and somehow ended up in a position? That's not strategy. That's stimulation-seeking behavior. And the market is more than happy to accommodate it. This is why discipline alone collapses here. Discipline is a conscious effort, but dopamine operates subconsciously. You can promise yourself to follow rules, but your nervous system is pulling in the opposite direction, craving novelty, movement, engagement. It's like trying to meditate in the middle of a nightclub. Eventually, something gives. And here's the cruel irony. The same traders who pride themselves on being disciplined are often the most vulnerable to dopamine traps. Why? Because they believe effort should be rewarded. So when they wait patiently and nothing happens, frustration builds. And when frustration builds, the brain seeks relief. A trade becomes a release valve, not because it's good, but because it feels like progress. This is where many traders unknowingly turn trading into emotional regulation. Bored? Trade. Anxious? Trade. Confident? Trade. Lost earlier? Trade to get it back. None of these reasons appear on a trading plan, yet they dominate behavior. And once trading becomes a mood management tool, consistency becomes impossible. Now, here's something important, and listen carefully. There is nothing wrong with your brain. You're not broken. You're human. The problem is that the environment you're trading in was never designed to protect you from this. It was designed to exploit it. Constant access, constant charts, constant opinions, constant alerts, no friction, no pause, no containment. This is why the rebel path emphasizes design over restraint. You don't fight dopamine, you design around it. You reduce unnecessary stimulation. You limit exposure. You create rules that don't just sound good, but actively remove you from temptation. You don't rely on willpower, you rely on architecture. Midway through this realization, many traders start asking better questions. Not, how do I trade more? But why do I feel the urge to trade when nothing is there? That shift matters. And if you're finding value in conversations like this, not hype, not signals, but real explanations of what's actually happening beneath the surface, then you're already aligning with the right tribe. This channel exists for traders who want clarity, not adrenaline. And the more you engage with this kind of content, the easier it becomes to detach from the noise and focus on what actually compounds over time. Back to dopamine. The market rewards those who can tolerate low stimulation for long periods. That's the uncomfortable truth. Most of the time, nothing is happening. Real edges don't show up every hour. They appear selectively, quietly, and they require you to be okay with not being entertained. That's why so few people ever reach consistency. Not because it's complex, but because it's boring in all the right ways. Once you see dopamine traps clearly, you begin to reinterpret your past. You realize many of your worst trades weren't bad analysis. They were bad timing driven by internal restlessness. You didn't enter because the market called you. You entered because your brain did. And the market always wins that conversation. The rebel doesn't aim to feel good while trading. Feeling good is a byproduct, not a goal. The goal is alignment, calm execution, predictable behavior. The moment trading stops being exciting is often the moment it starts becoming profitable. That sounds backwards until you've lived it. If this part of the lie resonates, sit with it. Don't rush to fix it. Awareness comes before correction. The moment you can observe the urge without obeying it, you've already stepped out of the trap. And once stimulation stops driving your decisions, something else takes its place. Structure, patience, design. There is another silent force that keeps traders trapped long after the overnight fantasy fades and the dopamine rush is exposed. Comparison. Not the healthy kind that inspires growth, but the corrosive kind that quietly dismantles confidence from the inside. Trading is one of the most comparison-heavy environments in the modern world, yet no one prepares you for how destructive that can be. You are constantly surrounded by other people's results, other people's timelines, other people's narratives of success. And slowly, almost invisibly, you begin measuring your worth against snapshots you don't understand. Comparison in trading rarely starts loud. It starts small. You see someone post a return that looks larger than yours. Someone claims consistency in half the time it's taken you. Someone says they flipped a small account into something impressive, and suddenly your steady progress feels insignificant. You don't question whether their context is real, you question whether yours is enough. And that's how comparison rewires your internal compass. The most dangerous part is that comparison doesn't just affect your emotions, it affects your decisions. You start adjusting your risk because someone else seems to be moving faster. You abandon a method that's slowly stabilizing because another trader claims a more aggressive approach. You take trades that don't belong to your model, not because they fit, but because you don't want to feel left behind. At that point, you're no longer trading the market. You're trading other people's lives. Social platforms amplify this distortion. They compress time, flatten struggle, and magnify outcomes. Years of development get edited into minutes of highlight. Losses disappear. Context vanishes. What remains is a scoreboard with no rules. And when you stare at that board long enough, you forget why you started trading in the first place. Here's something rarely acknowledged. Two traders can follow the same strategy and have completely different outcomes, not because one is better, but because their capital, psychology, experience, and risk tolerance are different. Comparison ignores all of that. It assumes fairness where none exists. It assumes linear progress in a nonlinear environment, and that assumption creates pressure where patience is required. At some point, every trader faces a fork in the road. One path leads inward. It asks you to refine your process, study your own data, and measure progress against yourself. The other path leads outward. It asks you to monitor others, mimic timelines, and chase external validation. The second path feels easier, but it leads to fragmentation. Your system loses coherence. Your confidence erodes. Your identity as a trader becomes unstable. This is why so many traders feel like they're constantly starting over. Every new comparison resets their expectations. Every impressive post makes their current system feel inadequate. And instead of compounding skill, they compound confusion. Comparison doesn't make you faster. It makes you inconsistent. There's a subtle but important realization that marks maturity in trading. The moment you understand that someone else's success does not subtract from yours. The market is not a race with limited podium spots. It's an environment of alignment. Your timeline is not behind. It is specific. And the more you accept that, the quieter your decision-making becomes. Let's pause the intensity for a second. If this reflection is resonating with you, if you've ever felt that pressure creep in while scrolling or watching other traders, take a moment to support the conversation. Liking the video helps this message reach traders who need to hear it, especially those silently comparing themselves into exhaustion. It also tells the algorithm that substance matters more than hype. Then come back here because this part is important. Comparison also distorts learning. Instead of studying principles, traders start copying outcomes. They ask, "What did you do?" instead of "Why does this work?" They collect techniques without understanding structure. And when those techniques fail outside their original context, frustration grows. The problem isn't that learning from others is bad, it's that borrowing without integration creates dependency. The rebel approach reframes comparison entirely. You don't eliminate it, you neutralize it. You observe others without internalizing their timeline. You extract principles without importing pressure. You respect success without chasing identity. Rebels measure themselves by consistency of execution, not by proximity to someone else's result. Once you stop comparing, something unexpected happens. Your system stabilizes. Your emotions settle. You begin to see your own progress clearly. And that clarity is dangerous, in a good way, because it makes you harder to manipulate, harder to rush, harder to distract. Comparison thrives in noise. It starves in silence. The more you build in isolation, the less external narratives can pull you off course. And that isolation isn't loneliness, it's focus. If this hit close to home, that's not a weakness, it's awareness. And awareness is the beginning of independence. There's a cost in trading that almost no one calculates, yet everyone pays. Not money, time. Not just hours on charts, but the invisible time that disappears quietly in the background of your life. The kind of time you only notice when you're exhausted, behind, and wondering how years passed with so little to show for it. This is the hidden bill of the overnight trader lie, and it's heavier than most people realize. When you believe success should be fast, you unknowingly agree to waste time aggressively. You jump from strategy to strategy, convinced the next one will finally be it. You restart accounts. You reset expectations. You relive the same learning curve over and over again, mistaking motion for progress. On paper, it looks like effort. In reality, it's repetition without accumulation. Think about how many hours you've spent watching charts that had no business being watched. Late nights staring at price, not because a setup was forming, but because you felt like you should be there. Weekends consumed by content that promised breakthroughs but delivered noise. Mental energy burned on what-ifs, regrets, and hypothetical profits that never materialized. That time doesn't come back. And worse, it compounds quietly. The overnight trader myth doesn't just steal your future. It cannibalizes your present. It keeps you psychologically on call. Even when you're not trading, part of your mind is still plugged into the market. You're half present in conversations, half rested in sleep, half committed to anything that isn't trading, because you're waiting for the moment everything finally clicks. That constant partial engagement drains you more than losses ever could. There's also the time cost of emotional recovery. Every rushed decision carries a residue. A bad trade doesn't end when you close it. It lingers. It affects the next decision, the next session, sometimes the next week. Traders underestimate how much time is lost regaining emotional neutrality after unnecessary mistakes. Hours are spent trying to feel ready again instead of simply being prepared by design. And then there's the most painful time cost of all, delayed maturity. The years spent chasing speed are years not spent building depth. While you're trying to force results, you're postponing the development of judgment. Judgment only comes from pattern recognition over time, from boredom endured, from mistakes analyzed instead of repeated. You can't shortcut that process without paying for it later with interest. Many traders look back and say, if only I had known this earlier. What they're really saying is, if only I had respected time. Not rushed it, not fought it, not treated it like an enemy. Time in trading is not a barrier. It's the medium. Just like water is to swimming. You don't conquer it. You learn to move within it. Here's an uncomfortable realization. Some traders don't fail because they lose money. They fail because they run out of life. Burn through motivation, confidence, relationships, and self-trust long before they ever reach consistency. The market didn't beat them. The timeline did. Or rather, the refusal to accept a real timeline did. The rebel path reframes time entirely. Time is no longer something to escape. It's something to invest. You stop asking how fast you can get results and start asking how sustainable your process is. You design routines that protect your attention. You define when not to trade as clearly as when to trade. You reclaim hours previously lost to noise and give them back to study, rest, and reflection. And something subtle but powerful happens when you do that. Trading stops dominating your identity. It becomes a component of your life, not the center of it. Ironically, that's often when performance improves, because desperation is gone, urgency is gone. You're no longer trying to compress your future into the next trade. Ask yourself this, honestly. If you removed every impulsive trade, every strategy hop, every emotionally driven decision, how much time would you get back? Not just chart time, but mental space. That question alone reveals how expensive impatience has been. The overnight trader lie teaches you to sacrifice years for the illusion of months. The rebel learns to sacrifice urgency for longevity. One path feels exciting, the other builds something that lasts. If you're still here listening to this, it means you're already counting differently, not in days or trades, but in alignment. And that shift, more than any strategy, is what preserves your most valuable asset. There comes a moment in every trader's journey when noise loses its grip, when speed no longer impresses, when excitement no longer convinces. That moment is quiet, almost unremarkable from the outside, but internally it changes everything. It's the moment you stop asking the market to save you and start taking responsibility for how you engage with it. This is the path of design, and it stands in direct opposition to every lie you've been sold about overnight success. Design begins with acceptance. Acceptance that the market is not here to reward hope, ambition, or effort in isolation. It rewards structure. It rewards repeatable behavior. It rewards those who understand that consistency is engineered, not wished into existence. The overnight trader waits for luck to strike. The design trader builds systems that don't need luck to survive. When you walk this path, you stop trying to feel confident before you act. Confidence becomes a byproduct of clarity. You know what you're looking for. You know what disqualifies a trade. You know how much you're willing to risk before the market ever moves. There is no internal debate, no emotional negotiation, no heroic moment of discipline. The decision has already been made by the architecture you put in place. Design also restores patience in a way motivation never could. Because patience is no longer an act of resistance, it's a natural outcome of knowing that nothing needs to be forced. When conditions are not present, you wait, not because you're strong, but because waiting is part of the system. That alone separates traders who survive from traders who slowly exhaust themselves. The most misunderstood part of design is that it is deeply personal. There is no universal blueprint. Two traders can operate in the same market with entirely different designs and both be correct. Design respects context, your capital size, your psychology, your time availability, your tolerance for uncertainty. The overnight myth ignores all of this. Design begins with it. As structure tightens, something else loosens. Your emotional attachment to outcomes. Wins don't inflate you. Losses don't break you. They become data. Feedback. Information that feeds refinement rather than self-judgment. You stop asking whether you are good or bad at trading and start asking whether your system is aligned or not. That shift alone removes an enormous psychological burden. This is why design is the end of comparison, the end of dopamine chasing, the end of urgency. It gives you something solid to return to when the market feels chaotic. A center, a reference point, a standard that doesn't move just because price does. And once you have that, you are no longer at war with yourself. The irony is that the path of design looks slow from the outside. It doesn't generate flashy screenshots. It doesn't make good bait for social media. But inside, it is anything but slow. It accelerates learning, stabilizes behavior, and compounds skill in a way no shortcut ever could. Over time, it produces something far more valuable than a lucky run. It produces trust. Trust in your process. Trust in your decisions. Trust in yourself. This is the real rebellion. Not loud defiance, but quiet refusal. Refusal to be rushed. Refusal to be manipulated. Refusal to outsource your thinking to hype and hope. Trading rebels exist because there are traders who want more than motivation. They want doctrine. They want frameworks that hold under pressure. They want to build something intentional. If this series has reshaped the way you see trading, then stay connected. Subscribe to the channel, not for noise, but for depth. Share this with a trader who's tired of chasing speed and ready to build something real. Engage with the conversation because this community grows through thinkers, not spectators. And most importantly, return. This is not a one-off message. It's an ongoing doctrine, a body of work designed to move you from reaction to creation, from urgency to intention, from chaos to structure. I look forward to seeing you in the next doctrine, where we continue this work, quietly, deliberately, and without compromise.